You know why they stopped making arena shooters? Because Unreal Tournament 2004 is the best one there could ever be. It is, without a doubt, the finest first-person shooter ever crafted by human hands. This game is everything you could want out of an FPS, a collection of the most versatile and deadly weapons you've ever seen, a heaping handful of game types, each with their own distinct and massive variety of maps, the absolute pinnacle of bot AI, a vibrant and varied art style that legitimately still looks great, and a phenomenal soundtrack to back it all up. And then there are all the various options it gives you. Dozens of character skins, tons of rules to tweak, and a long list of mutators that let you make all sorts of gameplay changes, major and minor. The point is, this game just has so much, and there's absolutely something in it for just about everyone. And believe me on that, because I've really put this game through its paces. I probably have more hours in this game than any other, stretching all the way back to when it released. From joining random servers and beefing up my collection of custom maps, LAN nights with my friends, a still regular rotation of offline bot games, and puttering around in the editor designing my own maps. And that's not even mentioning all the mods I've shoved in here over the years. Dozens of hours with stuff like Frag House Invasion, Unwheel, Ballistic Weapons, Carball, Alien Swarm, and Killing Floor. I love this game, and I have for over 20 years. It's an excellent piece of software and deserves a lot better than it's gotten from its creators. Because, you see, Epic decided it was better for everyone if this game and all their others that aren't Fortnite were totally unavailable. They were pulled from digital storefronts and had their master servers, the part of the online system that lets user-hosted dedicated servers show up in the browser, disconnected. As for why, we'll never know. Maybe they just couldn't keep paying the tens of dollars in hosting costs, what with how little money and influence Fortnite and the Unreal Engine bring them. But luckily for us sane people, the old Unreal group has once again worked their magic. Like the recent developments regarding Unreal and Unreal Tournament, UT 2004 is now under their protection and stewardship with Epic's blessing. The game's been made freely available on the Internet Archive and comes with an installer package to handle it and old Unreal's brand new patch. Because that's why I'm here today. This aggressively comprehensive patch, which isn't even the final version at time of recording, so expect it to get even better, has made getting the game up and running on modern systems easier than ever, which means there's no reason at all why you, yes, you, shouldn't be playing it. Check the description for a link if you trust me implicitly, or stick around if you want me to convince you. So what is an Unreal Tournament 2004? I just told you like a minute ago, what, you got me on your second monitor or something? Fine, I'll explain a little more. At its most basic, Unreal Tournament 2004 is a collection of 10 game modes across about 120 maps, and those numbers should already be making you pick your jaw up off the floor. Most games these days, you're lucky to break double digits with the maps on offer, and they all have to share the 3 game types they give you. UT 2004 has, again, over 120 out of the box, and each larger category of game type has its own pool with very few repeats. And these aren't just simple permutations of the same boxy arena with a thing in the middle or fancy figure eights. These are complex, multi-layered affairs. Cavernous spaces and claustrophobic arenas, twists and turns, mixes of sightlines long and short, jump pads, pathfinding tricks to figure out, and an immense collection of visual themes. This game manages to pile together grungy junkyards, gleaming sci-fi constructs, crumbling cities, icy tundra, mile-high skyscrapers, hell itself, the depths of space, Australia, ancient temples, whatever, and make it all feel coherent. That's thanks to an absolutely timeless visual style and truly masterful art direction. It's right from that era of finally having enough power behind the hardware to put everything they wanted to in, but it retains a clean and uncluttered design enforced by keeping everything working for older machines. The game retains a lot of the flashy colored lighting and great use of shadows that its predecessors did, but with a more practiced and even hand, and never so much that anything gets unreadable. Maps are colorful and vibrant but never garish, cold and muted without being boring. And there really are just so many different examples of it, something new around every corner. It feels like it should just be a jumbled mess of incoherent themes, but that kinda becomes the fun. Because there is no larger narrative throughline that demands consistency, every little one-off locale just adds to this weird universe until the entire thing is bursting at the seams with ideas. The world building of Unreal Tournament 2004 is some of the most fascinating you could ask for, because there's so much of it, and none of it needs to be there. The game presents a fun corporate dystopia where we have found a cure for death and use it to murder each other for fun and profit, harder and flashier than we ever have before. Map descriptions and character bios are small but expansive snippets that paint a picture of a galaxy full of wonders, all viewed through the lens of how many eyes it can get on the latest match. What if the Super Bowl was held in the literal Atlantis? How about if the next Olympics were broadcast from a temple discovered on an asteroid that could solve the deepest mysteries of human history if only those pesky bullet holes didn't keep showing up? The entire expansive universe is nothing but a series of potential tourist traps to our dear tournament organizers, and each little extra line of text you can find about them solidifies this picture of absurd, cartoonish greed that you can't help but be impressed by. Again, there is no story, there's no reason for this world to be built up other than the fact that it's fun to do, and honestly, I've gotta respect that. Creativity for the sake of it, taking any idea and just running with it, this gleeful energy of sticking a spooky medieval fantasy castle next to a space station next to a peaceful alien forest, and knowing that the only thing you have to do to justify it is say that Leandry Mining Corporation thought it would make a good place to fight. So instead of a story, the single-player mode has you assembling a team and going through a series of ladders while managing prize money to hire new members, issue challenges to other teams, and heal lingering injuries. It's neat and pretty well done, but isn't really something you'll be missing out on if you just play instant action or multiplayer. And when you do that, there is so much to choose from. Team and free-for-all deathmatch are classics that need no explanation, and they've got a couple variations in Mutant, where the scoreboard leader gets a bunch of stat boosts and everyone else only scores points for killing them, and Last Man Standing, where everyone spawns with a stock of lives. Another classic in Capture the Flag, the murder football of Bombing Run, which is kinda like One Flag CTF, where the flag is a ball that can be pushed or shot around, and the current carrier must either shoot it through the enemy goal to score or fling themselves into it for more points. A cooperative wave defense invasion mode, the take and hold double domination, and of course, Assault and Onslaught, which could both easily have been entire games all on their own. Assault is a narrative-style series of objectives one team must accomplish while the other tries to prevent them from doing so. These aren't simple chains of generic capture points like you see these days, these are full scenarios presenting an in-universe event you're replaying, again tying into how this game builds little windows into its world. Recapture a hijacked convoy as it rushes through the desert to prevent a missile launch. Steal an experimental tank and blast your way out of the factory. Defend Earth against the final thrust of an alien invasion by taking the fight into orbit and their own mothership. Assault's a real fun time. It has you doing a few different things, capturing specific zones, just reaching certain checkpoints, flipping switches, blowing up various targets, carrying something from one place to another. None of it's super tactical, but it rewards teamwork and, again, has a fantastic presentation that really elevates it from just being that simple sort of attack and defend mode. And you'd think something like that would be the big showstopper, but then they go and just casually drop Onslaught into the mix. Onslaught is basically an entire other video game, flipping the small-scale deathmatch arenas and opposing CTF bases on their heads. Massive battlefields, tons of vehicles like jeeps, hovercraft, artillery trucks, tanks, planes, and ATV with knives, and all new mode-specific weapons, in service of fighting tooth and nail over connected nodes to build a pathway into the enemy's base to blow up their core. Each node is a miniature base on its own, securing you new weapon options and vehicle spawns. Players on foot can teleport between any node that isn't currently under attack, but vehicles need to be driven or flown in. With how most maps have offshoot nodes offering more powerful options, it becomes a question of how much time and effort you can afford to spend to go get that tank. Only the furthest node in a connected chain is vulnerable to destruction by the enemy, creating a hyper-violent tug of war as the front shift and people bring in the various resources they've secured access to. And with a maximum of 32 players in a map, there's always something to fight over. That said, the biggest downside to these modes these days is that this is definitely where you'd want some extra human players around. The bots are absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong, and they can play all these game modes with no problem, but Assault and Onslaught do benefit from the kind of coordination you can only really get out of other people. Not that you can't make a good show of it and still have tons of fun. The bots were already great in 1998's Unreal, and they've only gotten better since. Agile and reactive, able to use terrain to hide or maneuver just like another player, knowing what weapons are good for which situations and even what fire modes to use, leading their shots, being able to time grabbing pickups, even down to individual bots having weapon preferences that dictate how they'll move around the map and what sorts of environments they try to force engagements in. For those of you with a bit of a tactical mindset, you can bring up a menu to issue orders to the bots, either as a whole team or individually. Tell them to roam, defend the base, attack the enemy, or follow you around, and you can get yourself a decent strategy going. If you don't want to fiddle with it, no problem. In objective-oriented game modes, the bots auto-assign themselves roles based on their strengths, and you can get one to follow you around just by walking close to them. These are not placeholder afterthoughts given to the players who didn't have an internet connection. These are real, dangerous participants. And of course, if they're a little too dangerous, feel free to drop the difficulty. Each level affects a bot's aim, reaction time, aggressiveness, and movement capabilities, including how well they can dodge. You can get noticeably different fights out of these guys and honestly use them to get better at the game. It's just another piece of a well-oiled machine working in concert with everything else to deliver a great experience. But all that's dancing around the actual core of things. What is this game like to interact with? UT 2004's gameplay is so tightly constructed that it's basically impossible to not find some way to have fun. Player mobility is through the roof with double jumping, wall jumping, and boost dodging, but movement is just one half of an arena shooter like this, so what about the other half, the weapons? There are only 9 main pieces of the arsenal, not counting the super weapons and onslaught editions, but each one has its distinct purpose while still being flexible enough to reward creativity and have room for personal preference. 9 main weapons might not sound like a lot in today's landscape, but this just ensures that no weapon feels useless or objectively outclassed by another. The flexibility of the arsenal is what's key here. You're given tons of options within what exists, and enough room in a fight to capitalize on them. You can die pretty fast in this game, but with a good sense of your surroundings and decent reflexes, you generally always have time to react and try to turn things around. UT 2004's time to kill is a teeny bit higher than its predecessors and contemporaries, and while that's been a critique leveled at it, I think it was a perfectly fine choice that ends up resulting in more interesting fights. The UT series always felt like it emphasized proper dueling over long-range twitch shooting. You get a chance to react to the other players, have some actual interaction rather than just taking potshots at where you expect them to be somewhere on the other side of the map, or mowing them down in a fraction of a second. Dodging projectiles, denying a path around a corner with bouncing flak or a field of explosive sludge, breaking an ambush with a shock combo, punishing going for a pickup with a shower of machine gun fire. Fights can last with room to jockey around each other, or, of course, turn into hilarious messes in larger games. It all comes back to how many options this game gives you for how to play it. It can be as competitive or as casual as you want, all lying underneath an umbrella of great mechanics and an expansive collection of maps and game modes. For a bit more customization, let's go back to those mutators for a sec. These are tiny changes that you can apply to any match you start, anything from goofy add-ons like Big Head Mode or slow-motion ragdolls, gameplay tweaks like quad jumping or getting health back when you deal damage, to shifting the entire underlying structure of the game by changing weapon damage, behavior, and fire modes to those of other UT games. Like I said, there's a way for anyone to get something they like out of this game. There's a reason I've been coming back for this long. At the most basic, I just think it's fun. The things it does click with me in a way that I find incredibly satisfying. I don't think it's utterly flawless, but it gives me the flexibility to play the parts of it I like best. And that's kind of something we're missing these days, isn't it? Getting to play a game, at least a multiplayer game, the way you want to. As we progress further into the current gaming landscape, we're seeing more and more of what made not just this game, but all games like it so impactful get stripped away. It's been a slow march of paid map expansions that intentionally fracture the player base to incentivize you to open your wallet to keep playing with your friends, loot boxes, premium weapon bundles and skins, paying to bypass a progression system that already exists to artificially prolong your engagement with a game you might not otherwise like well enough to play for fun. Battle passes, limited time packs, all the little bits and bobs they can think of to keep you involved for longer than you might really want to be. I want to call all of this, collectively, a way to build an artificial community. A community of people who play the game not because they enjoy it as a pastime, but to keep chasing the carrot being dangled in front of them. And it's not any of those players' faults. Game companies have invested hellish amounts of money into finding the right ways to manipulate player psychology. That isn't crackpot fear-mongering. This is something they'll happily talk about during public earnings calls. And I get that you've got to make money since creating a AAA video game now takes more of it than the GDP of some small European countries, but you're not getting people who care about the game, you're getting people who just want to stick around to get the next shiny thing you add to it. We don't really have video game communities in the way we used to. Official and clan forums, user-hosted servers with a collection of regular players you could count on seeing after school or work. The knowledge that yeah, you're probably not gonna be playing this game forever, but you're happy with what you've got now. You played it because you liked it. Because it was fun. And if you liked it well enough, maybe you'd learn how to make mods for it. Let me pull back the curtain a little bit. I admit I wasn't really sure how I was going to end this video. I didn't intend for it to be that involved, just an opportunity to talk about how much I like this game in the wake of the new patch coming out and its availability on the Internet Archive. Links in the description. But as I was loading up all the old mods and scrolling through the hundreds of user-made maps I've collected over the years, I realized I don't get to do this anymore. I've played and enjoyed plenty of newer games. I got pretty into Rainbow Six Siege for a while, and I even had a bunch of fun with the recent Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 whatever reason they gave, which was my first one of it since World at War. I've since fallen off both, but I enjoyed the time I spent with them. But they are, by default, more competitive shooters, and don't really have the ability to be anything else. Nothing can make them into something else. I can't find a casual server with a 30-minute round timer and low gravity for Siege. I couldn't experience a match ending and suddenly loading into a janky racetrack where everyone was driving the gun-toting RC car in Modern Warfare. And I'm not asking for that specifically, but, the option would be nice. And that lingering expectation comes from games like UT 2004. This game, and so many others from the era, were immense playgrounds for anyone with a notion to crack open the included map editor and modding tools. And I know I shouldn't talk about all this like it's an actual part of the game, because when you download it like you should, you aren't going to have all this, and it didn't exist when the game came out, but hell, it's my video, I can do what I want. The possibility being there is what's important. And yeah, mods, man, user content, remember that? YouTube tells me my general audience is roughly the same age I am, so you probably do. Browsing the server list and seeing a map or game mode you'd never heard of, taking a friend's recommendation and tracking down something specific, hearing about a comprehensive total conversion and finding yourself suddenly playing an entirely new game inside of what you already had. Were all of them good? No. Sometimes they were absolutely awful, sometimes they were just okay. But they were there, and they were a marker that someone cared enough about the game to try to add something to it. They didn't just want to get the new thing, they wanted to make the new thing. Unreal Tournament 2004 launched with over 120 maps spread across 10 game modes. That number is still absurd. But it will run out, right? You'll play all of them eventually and find your favorites. User-made maps number in the thousands. There are unique game modes, recreations of older ones, entire frameworks built that then have their own mods added onto them. And this is what you get when you give people these tools. You get people tinkering away for years after release, making the thing they want to see. You get a real community. Unreal Tournament 2004's community has always kept this game alive, and that's true now more than ever. But that community wouldn't exist like it does today if modding hadn't been an option and we were all supposed to dutifully shuffle on to the next installment without question. Again, I understand that games need to make money, and having people stick with a 5-year-old title over the newest one isn't great for the bottom line, to say nothing of how many people still prefer something like Counter-Strike 1.6 versus CS2. But it is how you make a real legacy, how you stay in the general consciousness and have weight attached to your name. We would be missing out on so many games, big and small, if modding had never been an option. Pretty much all the biggest multiplayer live service games right now that aren't gachas owe their existence to a mod created almost or over a quarter of a century ago. Counter-Strike from Half-Life 1, Dota 2 and League of Legends from Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, any Battle Royale from Arma 2. Fortnite itself, Epic's Golden Goose that is one of the most absurdly prevalent games ever, is mods stacked on mods. They were a way for people to get started. People with no experience before any formal game development training was established would be puttering away at included or user-built map editors, studying code and game logic, replicating it, making their own. For a while there, games were creative outlets that let people explore and experiment. They were a promise that you could come up with an idea and find a way to make it real. We lost all of that. Even in spaces where that sort of creativity is still allowed, it comes with a twist. You're no longer making something for you or the community, you're making something for the parent company, for free, that they will control and get money from by way of skin sales and premium currency. And past that, with the now ever-present demand of constant connectivity, what are the chances you can dust whatever you made off 15 years down the road and pick it back up? Who knows if the servers will still be up, if the version compatibility won't have changed so drastically that something's become unplayable. Single-player games are, of course, their own landscape, and it's obviously better if these options exist than if they were gone entirely, but it's still a shame to see what used to be such a vibrant and expected part of gaming get whittled down to where it is now. People made mods not to fill in gaps intentionally left in the original game, but because they saw potential and a medium in which to realize it. Big-name games aren't really understood to be something you play for fun and then put down anymore. You have to be a captured statistic for a certain amount of time, have enough extra cash squeezed out of you, because if the newest game makes even a penny less than the last one, it's seen as a failure. The mainstream games industry is cratering. Hardware costs are out of control, companies are being run into the ground by C-levels who don't know what video games are and seem to hate the concept of them. Huge companies with respectable catalogs are being bought, told to sit on their hands, and dismantled without ever getting to do anything. People have lost their jobs by the tens of thousands multiple years in a row. Sales expectations have been utterly unreasonable for even longer. Everything must be live service because a $70 one-time purchase isn't enough. Even single-player games are online only and at real risk of disappearing when the parent company decides hosting is too expensive. The lifespan of something that cost billions over almost a decade of development can be measured in days. It can't keep happening like this for much longer. Games used to be different. Simpler, sure. Rougher, absolutely. Better? Not necessarily. There's always been shovelware. There are still great games being made by passionate people even at the AAA level. But it's undeniable that this all used to be different. The important thing is, unlike all those live service games that have come and gone, unlike the aggressive push of yearly titles trying to erase the previous entry, games like this one are still here, even despite its creators' attempt to bury it. Games from this era and before all still have their fans, and even though they might not be tens of millions strong, they're the ones dedicated enough to keep making these unofficial patches, to perform the upkeep necessary to keep playing because they want to keep playing them. No game released after a certain point in time will have this same sort of legacy. Game companies have viewed these products as disposable for a long time now. Even if people still like the game and tell the company they dearly want to keep playing, there is no way for them to. You should be playing Unreal Tournament 2004. Not just because it's a great game, but because it, and all the games like it, are from an era the people currently in charge of the big companies don't want us to ever go back to. An era where you could buy a game once and play it however you liked. When you could change it into whatever you wanted. When you could keep playing it, even after they decided they didn't want you to anymore.
Red team increases their lead. Red team is the winner.